The stars in Sector 77 Omega did not shine like normal stars. They flickered with a sick, pale light that made even the bravest pilots turn their ships around. For 12,000 years, the Galactic Concordat had marked this region of space with the highest warning level. No ship was allowed to enter. No probe was sent inside. The sector was forbidden, and every species in the known galaxy understood why. Ships that entered never came back. Warden Commander stood on the bridge of her patrol vessel, the Silent Watch, and stared at the boundary markers on her screen. She had served at this post for 15 years. In all that time, she had never seen anything cross the line. The sector was dead space, empty and hungry, and it stayed that way. Until today. The alarm started soft, then grew louder, turned her large, dark eyes toward the sensor station. Her second officer, a young male named, was pressing buttons with shaking hands. "Commander," he said, his voice tight with fear, "we have movement. Something is coming out of the forbidden sector." Felt her four hearts begin to beat faster. "That is impossible. Nothing survives in there." "I know, Commander, but the sensors do not lie." She walked to his station and looked at the data herself. There it was, clear as daylight. A single object moving slowly but steadily toward the boundary. It was small, much smaller than any warship in the Concordat fleet. The readings made no sense. The object had no energy shields, no weapons that the sensors could detect. Its power source was primitive, based on some kind of nuclear reaction that the Concordat had abandoned thousands of years ago. "What is it?" whispered. Did not answer. She watched as the object crossed the boundary line and entered safe space. Now that it was closer, the sensors could build a picture of its shape. It was a cylinder with strange wings of flat panels stretching out from its sides. The hull was covered in scars and patches. Pieces of metal had been welded over holes. The whole thing looked like it had been broken and repaired 100 times. "It is a ship," finally said. "A very old, very damaged ship." "But from where? What species? I am checking the database, but there is no match." Leaned closer to the screen. There was something painted on the side of the vessel, letters in a language she had never seen. The translation software struggled for a moment, then gave up. "The word appears to be endurance," said, "but I do not recognize the language family." Made a decision. Open a communication channel, all frequencies. The communication officer nodded and pressed the necessary controls. For a long moment there was only silence. Then a sound came through the speakers. It was a voice. A single voice, speaking calmly in that same unknown language. The translation software worked faster this time. Words appeared on the screen in front of. "This is Captain of the UNS Endurance. We have traveled very far and we are looking for home. Is anyone out there?" The bridge crew looked at each other, could see the confusion on their faces. The Galactic Concordat had records of 4,127 spacefaring species. They knew every civilization that had ever built a ship and left their planet. They knew the dead ones and the living ones, the peaceful ones and the dangerous ones. But this voice belonged to no species they had ever heard of. "Respond," ordered. "Tell them we received their message. Ask them to hold position." The communication officer sent the reply. A few minutes later, the unknown voice spoke again. "Thank you, we will wait. We have been waiting for a long time. A little longer will not hurt." Immediately contacted Concordat Command. Within the hour, the news had spread across 100 star systems. An unknown ship had appeared from the forbidden sector. It carried living beings, and no one knew who they were or how they had survived. The council chambers on the capital world are filled with representatives from every major species. They arrived first, their massive armored bodies taking up space meant for 3 normal delegates. They were warriors, bred for battle over countless generations, and they did not like surprises. "Destroy it," the general demanded. "Anything that comes from that cursed place must be a weapon or a trap. We should not take risks." The delegate raised one of her many delicate arms. Her species was old, far older than and they preferred thought over action. "We should not be hasty," she said in her soft, musical voice. "The ship is primitive. The beings inside may be frightened explorers who stumbled into the sector by accident. We should learn more before we act." "Learn more," the general slammed his fist on the table. 12,000 years the sector has been forbidden. 12,000 years nothing has survived inside it. And now, suddenly, a ship appears. You do not find this suspicious? "I find it interesting," the replied. "There is a difference." The argument continued for hours. More delegates spoke. Some agreed with some sided with but everyone was waiting for one voice. The archivists had not yet spoken. The archivists were the oldest beings in the Concordat. No one knew exactly how old. Their bodies were made of living crystal that glowed with inner light. They did not eat or sleep. They only watched and remembered and occasionally shared their wisdom. When the lead archivist finally moved, the chamber fell silent. "We have searched our memories," the archivist said. Its voice was like wind through glass. "We have looked back through billions of years of recorded history. We find no record of this species. They are not in our archives. They are not in anyone's archives." "Then where did they come from?" someone asked. "That is the question," the archivist replied, "and we believe only they can answer it." Back at the border received new orders. She was to approach the unknown vessel. She was to make contact with its crew. She was to learn everything she could. She took a small shuttle and flew alone toward the strange ship. As she got closer, she could see just how badly damaged it was. The hull was a patchwork of different metals. Some sections looked newer than others, as if they had been replaced many times. The solar panels on the sides were cracked and bent, held together with wire and hope. The ship's airlock opened as she approached, docked her shuttle and stepped through. On the other side, a creature was waiting. It stood on two legs like but it was shorter and softer. Its skin was a pale pinkish color, and it had hair on top of its head, dark and streaked with gray. It wore a simple suit covered in patches and repairs, just like its ship. The creature looked at with two small eyes. Then it did something strange. It pulled its lips back, showing flat white teeth. "Step back." In her culture, showing teeth was a threat, a warning before attack. But the creature did not attack. Instead, it raised one of its hands, palm facing outward, and spoke. "Hello, I am Captain. Thank you for coming. We did not know if anyone would." The translator in suit converted the words. She stood very still, studying this strange being. It looked so fragile, so weak. How could something so soft survive in the forbidden sector? "I am Warden Commander," she replied. "I have many questions." The creature called made that tooth-showing expression again. "I am sure you do. Come inside. I will tell you our story, but I warn you it is a long one." She turned and walked into her ship. After a moment of hesitation, followed. She did not know it yet, but she was about to learn something that would change the galaxy forever. She was about to discover what humans were capable of when the universe tried to break them. And the universe had tried very, very hard. The inside of the human ship was nothing like it expected. Concordat vessels were clean and bright, filled with advanced technology and smooth surfaces. This ship was the opposite. The walls were covered with pipes and wires. Strange machines hummed and clicked in every corner. The air smelled of metal and something else, something organic that could not identify. But it was not the ship that surprised her most. It was the people. They were everywhere. Men and women and children, all with that same soft skin and strange hair. Some had light skin, some dark. Some had eyes of brown, others of blue or green. They watched as she walked past, their faces showing curiosity instead of fear. A small human, barely reaching waist, ran up to her and stared with wide eyes. "Are you an alien?" the little one asked. Captain laughed. It was a strange sound, warm and rough. "Maria, this is Commander. She came to help us. Please be polite." The child called Maria smiled at, showing tiny white teeth. "Sorry, you are very tall, and your eyes are pretty." Did not know what to say. In her entire career, no one had ever called her eyes pretty. Led her through narrow corridors to a room at the center of the ship. It was some kind of meeting area, with a large table and chairs built for human bodies. Maps and charts covered the walls, filled with handwritten notes in that strange human language. "Please sit," said. "I know you have questions. I will answer what I can." Remained standing. Her body was not shaped for human chairs. "How many of you are there on this ship?" 47, replied. 23 adults, 24 children. "And you have been traveling through the forbidden sector. For how long?" Was quiet for a moment. Her eyes looked tired, the eyes of someone who had seen too much. "We left Earth 212 years ago." Felt her heart skip. 212 years, but you are clearly not that old. How is this possible? "I am not the original captain," explained. "I am the fourth. My great-grandmother was the first. She launched this ship with a crew of 600 people. They were going to a new star, a place called 442b. Scientists thought it might be a good world for humans to live." She paused, her hands folded on the table. But something went wrong. A navigation error, a malfunction. We do not know exactly what happened. When our ancestors woke from their long sleep, they were not where they expected to be. They were in your forbidden sector. Felt a chill run through her body. They entered the sector by accident. Yes, and they could not get out. Every time they tried to turn around, something pushed them back. The space itself seemed to be alive, and it did not want them to leave. So they did the only thing they could. They kept going forward. Stood and walked to one of the maps on the wall. It showed a path through the sector, a twisted line that curved and looped like a snake. "This is our journey," she said. 212 years, 8 generations of people born and died on this ship. We face things that I cannot describe, storms that bent light, gravity that crushed metal, radiation that made people sick, and something else, something worse." "What do you mean?" asked. Turned to face her. There was something in there, something that got inside our heads. It whispered to us. It showed us terrible things. It made people see their worst fears. Some of our crew went mad. Some gave up and stopped eating, stopped breathing. They just surrendered. Knew about this. The reports from ships that had entered the sector, the ones that managed to send final messages before going silent, always mentioned the same thing: madness, despair, a feeling of being watched by something ancient and hungry. "How did you survive?" asked. "The strongest ships in our fleet could not last more than a few days in that sector. How did you survive for 200 years? Smiled, but it was a sad smile. "We did not always survive," she said. "We lost people, many people. In the first year alone, 300 died. The second generation was smaller, the third smaller still. By the time I was born, there were only 70 of us left." She sat back down, her movement slow and heavy. "But we refused to disappear. When the machines broke, we fixed them with whatever we could find. When the food ran out, we learned to grow plants in tiny rooms with artificial light. When the darkness came for our minds, we sang songs and told stories and reminded each other who we were." Listened in silence. She had studied military history for decades. She knew about great battles and desperate last stands, but she had never heard of anything like this. A tiny group of fragile beings, trapped in the most dangerous place in the galaxy, fighting not against an enemy army but against the universe itself. "And the thing that whispered," said carefully, "the presence in the sector, how did you fight that?" Laughed again, but this time it was different, harder, fiercer. "We did not fight it, not at first. We could not fight something we could not touch. But then my grandmother, the second captain, figured out what it wanted. It wanted us to give up. It wanted us to accept that we were small and weak and meaningless. It fed on our fear and our despair." She leaned forward, her eyes bright. So we stopped being afraid. Tilted her head. That is not possible. Fear is a natural response to danger. All living things feel fear. Yes, agreed. Fear is natural, but what we do with our fear is a choice. We chose to be angry instead. We chose to be stubborn. When the presence told us we were going to die, we told it to go to hell. When it showed us nightmares, we woke up and went back to work. When it tried to make us surrender, we looked into the darkness and said no. She stood up again, her small body somehow filling the room with energy. My grandmother made a speech. I have it memorized. Every child on this ship learns it before they can walk. She said, "We are humans. We have crawled out of the mud. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We have split atoms and walked on moons. We are not special because we are strong. We are special because we do not quit, and we will not quit now." Felt something strange in her chest. She had met many warriors in her life, generals who had conquered star systems, admirals who had commanded fleets of thousands, but none of them had ever made her feel what she was feeling now. It was not fear, it was not admiration. It was something deeper, something like hope. "Your people," she said slowly, "they sound very determined." Determined, repeated the word. "Yes, that is one way to say it. We have another word for it. We call it being human." She walked to a small window and looked out at the stars. For the first time since had met her, she looked peaceful. 212 years, she said softly. 8 generations, thousands of days in the dark, but we made it. We are here. And now I just want to find our way home. I want to see Earth again. I want to feel the sun on my face and the wind in my hair. She turned back to, "Can you help us?" Thought about the council. She thought about the who wanted to destroy this ship and the who wanted to study it. She thought about the archivists and their ancient memories. And she thought about 47 humans who had done the impossible. "I do not know," she said honestly, "but I will try." Showed her teeth again in that strange human smile. "That is all we have ever done," she said. "Try and keep trying no matter what." Returned to her ship that night with a recording of everything had told her. She sent it to the Concordat Council without comment. She did not know what they would decide, but she knew one thing for certain. The universe was about to learn what humanity could do. And she suspected that the universe was not ready. The council chamber was silent as the recording ended. For a long moment, no one spoke. The delegates from 100 species sat frozen, trying to understand what they had just heard. A primitive species, a damaged ship, 200 years in the forbidden sector. It was impossible. Everyone knew it was impossible. And yet the proof was floating at the edge of their space, filled with 47 living, breathing humans. The general was the first to break the silence. His deep voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. "This changes nothing. The ship came from the forbidden sector. We do not know what it brought with it. We do not know if these creatures are what they claim to be. They could be weapons designed to look innocent. They could be infected with something dangerous. We must destroy them." The delegate shook her head slowly. "General, did you not hear the recording? These beings survived something that killed our best ships in days. They survived for generations. Do you not want to know how?" "I do not care how. I care about protecting our people. And I care about understanding our universe. These humans may know things about the forbidden sector that we have never learned. They walked through it. They saw what is inside." The argument grew louder. More delegates joined, shouting over each other in a dozen different languages. The translators struggled to keep up with the chaos. Then the archivists moved. Their crystal bodies began to glow brighter, shifting through colors that had no name. The light filled the chamber and slowly the voices fell silent. Everyone turned to watch. The lead archivist floated forward, its form pulsing with ancient energy. "We must share something with the council," it said, "something we have kept hidden for a very long time." The chamber grew even quieter. The archivists were known for their secrets. They remembered things from before the Concordat, before most species had left their home planets, before the first starships had crossed the void. When they chose to share a secret, it was always important. 12,000 years ago, we declared Sector 77 Omega forbidden, the archivist continued. We told everyone that it was too dangerous to enter. We said that the radiation and gravity made it impossible to survive. This was true, but it was not the whole truth. The archivist's light dimmed slightly, as if even the memory was painful. The sector is not a natural place. It was built, created, designed to be exactly what it is. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The general leaned forward, his eyes narrow. Built by whom? By the precursors. The word sent a shiver through every delegate. The precursors were the oldest story in the galaxy, the first civilization to achieve true power, billions of years before any current species had existed. They had mastered technology that modern science could not even understand. And then, suddenly, they had vanished. No one knew why. The precursors created Sector 77 Omega as a prison, the archivist said. They built it to hold something, something that threatened all conscious life in the universe. The lead archivist paused. Its light flickered unstable. We call it the hollow mind. The words hung in the air like poison. The hollow mind is not a creature, the archivist explained. It is not alive in the way we understand life. It is more like an idea, a force. It exists in the space between thoughts, in the darkness between stars. It feeds on consciousness, on awareness, on the simple fact that beings like us can think and feel and know we exist. The delegate raised a trembling arm. Why have you never told us this before? Because there was nothing to be done. The prison held. The sector kept the hollow mind contained. We saw no reason to spread fear about something that could not escape. Could not escape, the general repeated slowly. You said could not, past tense. The archivist's light turned a deep, sorrowful blue. The humans changed something. Their journey through the sector, their survival, their defiance. It was not supposed to be possible. The prison was designed to break anyone who entered, to crush their minds and feed their consciousness to the hollow mind. But the humans did not break. The chamber was completely silent now. The hollow mind touched them, the archivist continued. It tried to consume them as it has consumed countless others over billions of years. But something about the human mind was different. Instead of surrendering, they pushed back. They challenged it. They refused to accept oblivion. The archivist turned to face the great window that showed the stars outside. We have monitored the sector since the humans emerged. The readings have changed. The hollow mind is no longer dormant. It is awake. It is aware. And it is curious. Curious about what? Someone asked. About the beings who told it no. The council erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted accusations and demands. Some called for immediate military action. Others insisted on evacuation plans. The general demanded that the human ship be destroyed at once before the hollow mind could find it again. But through all the noise, one voice remained calm. Warden Commander had been brought to the council as a witness. She had sat quietly through the entire meeting, listening and watching. Now she stood, and her presence somehow cut through the chaos. May I speak? The chamber slowly quieted. The lead archivist nodded. Walked to the center of the room, her tall form casting a long shadow. I have met the humans, she said. I have walked on their ship. I have seen their faces and heard their stories, and I believe I understand something that this council does not. She looked around at the delegates, meeting their eyes one by one. You are afraid, she said simply. They want to destroy the humans because they are afraid of what the humans represent. They want to study them because they are afraid of what they do not understand. Even the archivists are afraid, or they would have shared this truth long ago. No one interrupted her. But the humans are not afraid, Or rather, they are afraid, but they do not let their fear control them. I watched Captain talk about 200 years of horror, and she smiled. She told me about friends and family members who died in the darkness, and then she asked me to help her get home. Turned to face the archivists directly. You said the hollow mind was surprised by the humans, that it was curious about beings who refused to surrender. I think this is important. The prison was designed to break minds through despair, but human minds do not break the same way ours do. They bend. They adapt. They find reasons to keep going even when there are no reasons left. She paused, letting her words sink in. I am not saying the humans can defeat the hollow mind. I am not even saying they can help us survive whatever is coming. But I am saying that destroying them would be a mistake. They know something we do not. They have faced something we cannot face. If there is any hope of understanding the threat we now face, it lies with them. The general growled, and if they are dangerous, if they carry the hollow mind's influence with them. Looked at him with calm eyes. Then we will deal with that when the time comes. But right now, they are 47 tired, brave people who have been lost in the dark for 2 centuries. They are not asking for much, just a chance to go home. The council debated for many more hours. Votes were taken and arguments were made. But in the end, a decision was reached. The humans would be allowed to stay. They would be studied carefully and respectfully. And most importantly, they would be asked to share everything they knew about the forbidden sector. Because the archivists were right about one thing. The hollow mind was awake. And soon, the entire galaxy would have to face it. When returned to the border to share the news with Captain, she found the human captain standing at the window of her ship, looking at the stars. They decided to let us stay, said. Nodded slowly. Good, that is good. She was quiet for a moment, then added, They told you about the thing in the sector, did they not? The thing we felt in the darkness. Yes, they call it the hollow mind. Laughed, but there was no humor in it. We had a different name for it. We called it the hungry dark. It whispered to us every single day, told us we were nothing, told us the universe was cold and empty and did not care if we lived or died. She turned to look at. It was right, you know, the universe does not care, but we do. We care about each other, we care about tomorrow, and that is enough. She smiled her strange human smile. That is always enough. The first sign came 3 weeks after the council made its decision. A research station on the edge of Concordat space went silent. One moment, the crew of 200 scientists was sending normal reports about stellar radiation and asteroid movements. The next moment, nothing, just empty static where their voices used to be. A rescue fleet arrived within hours. They found the station intact with no signs of damage or attack. The lights were still on, the computers were still running, but the crew was gone. All 200 of them had walked to the airlocks, opened them, and stepped into the void. The security recordings showed what had happened. One by one, the scientists had stopped working. Their faces had gone blank, their eyes empty. They had moved like sleepwalkers, shuffling through the corridors without speaking. And just before each one reached the airlock, they had smiled. The same terrible, peaceful smile. The Concordat tried to keep it secret, but secrets do not last in a galaxy full of curious minds. Within days, everyone knew. Within weeks, it happened again, and again, and again. A mining colony on a distant moon, a transport ship carrying 3,000 passengers, a military base with some of the best soldiers in the fleet. Each time, the pattern was the same. Silence, then stillness, then death. The hollow mind was reaching out. The council met in emergency session. The fear in the chamber was so thick that could almost taste it. Species that had never agreed on anything were now united by terror. The lead archivist floated at the center of the room, its light dim and flickering. It is spreading faster than we predicted, it said. The prison is weakening. The hollow mind's influence can now reach far beyond the forbidden sector. Then seal the sector, the general demanded. Build stronger barriers. Destroy anything that tries to leave. We cannot. The sector was built by the precursors using technology we do not understand. We cannot repair it. We cannot strengthen it. We can only watch as it fails. Then what do? The delegate's voice trembled. How do we fight something that attacks our minds? How do we defend against an enemy we cannot see or touch? The archivist turned to look at the corner of the chamber, where a small group of humans sat quietly. Captain had been invited to the meeting as an observer. She had brought 2 of her crew members with her, a young man named and an older woman named. Perhaps, the archivist said slowly, we should ask the ones who have already fought it. Every eye in the chamber turned to the humans. Stood up. She was so much smaller than the other delegates, so fragile-looking compared to the armored or the ancient archivists, but she did not seem nervous. She walked to the center of the room with the same calm confidence she had shown since the day her ship emerged from the darkness. The hollow mind tried to break us every day for 200 years, she said. It whispered to us in our sleep. It showed us visions of everyone we loved dying. It told us that our struggle was meaningless, that the universe was empty and cold, that consciousness itself was a mistake. She paused, looking around at the alien faces watching her. It was very convincing. Many of our people believed it. They gave up. They let go, and the hollow mind took them. The chamber was silent. But some of us did not believe. Some of us looked at the darkness and said, maybe you are right. Maybe the universe is cold and empty. Maybe nothing we do matters, but we are going to keep going anyway. We are going to love each other and tell stories and plant gardens and raise children, not because the universe cares, but because we care. She smiled, and for once it did not look like a threat display. It looked like something else, something warm. The hollow mind could not understand that. It feeds on despair, on the moment when a conscious being accepts that existence is pointless. But we never accepted that. Even when everything seemed hopeless, we chose to find meaning. We made our own reasons to live. The general snorted. Pretty words, but how does that help us? How do we teach an entire galaxy to think like humans? Looked at him with calm eyes. You do not need to think like humans. You just need to understand what we learned. The hollow mind is not all-powerful. It has limits. It cannot take a mind that refuses to surrender. It can whisper and threaten and show terrible things, but in the end, each person must choose to give up. If they do not choose, it cannot win. She turned to the archivists. Your prison did not fail because the hollow mind grew stronger. It failed because the galaxy grew weaker. How many of your people have forgotten how to struggle? How many have lived in comfort so long that they have forgotten what it means to fight for something? The archivist's light flickered. You are saying, the prison weakened because we lost our will to resist. I am saying the prison was never just walls and energy fields. It was also belief. The precursors understood that. They built a cage that would hold as long as conscious beings in the galaxy believed they were worth saving. But 12,000 years is a long time. People forget. They get comfortable. They start to wonder if maybe existence is not so wonderful after all. She walked to the great window and looked out at the stars. The hollow mind has been awake for a long time, waiting for this moment, waiting for the galaxy to doubt itself. And now it is moving. The young man who had come with stood up. Captain, should we tell them about Earth? Turned back to the council. Yes, I think it is time. She took a deep breath. We have been trying to contact our home planet since we arrived. Our communication equipment is old and weak, but we finally managed to send a message to Earth. And yesterday, we received a reply. The chamber stirred. The delegates leaned forward, curious despite their fear. Earth has changed since we left, said. When the Endurance launched, humanity had just begun to reach beyond our moon. We were still learning how to live in space. But 200 years is a long time, and humans do not sit still. She pressed a button on a small device she carried. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing images and data. Earth now has a population of 8 billion people. We have colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. We have built ships that travel faster than light, using technology we developed ourselves. And when they received our message, when they heard what we had faced and what we had learned. She paused and her smile grew wider. They started building. The holographic display changed to show shipyards in orbit around Earth. Thousands of vessels in various stages of construction. Not elegant ships like the ones the Concordat built, but practical, sturdy, designed to survive. "This image is 3 days old," said. "By now, there will be more ships, and more being planned. Humanity has heard about the hollow mind, and humanity has decided that we are not going to let it win." The general stared at the display. "They are building a war fleet to fight something that attacks minds. Not just a war fleet, a fleet of survivors. Every ship will carry people trained in the techniques we developed on the Endurance, how to resist the whispers, how to hold on to hope when there is no reason for hope, how to look into the darkness and refuse to blink." Turned to face the council one last time. "The hollow mind made a mistake when it let our ship pass through the sector. It thought we were too weak to matter. It was wrong. Now it will have to deal with all of humanity. 8 billion stubborn, angry, determined people who have spent their entire history fighting against things that wanted to destroy them." She walked back to her seat, her message delivered. "We are not afraid of the dark," she said quietly. "We grew up in it." The council debated for a long time after that. Many delegates still wanted to flee or surrender or find some way to appease the hollow mind. But slowly, something changed. The fear was still there, but now there was something else mixed with it. Hope. The humans had faced the hollow mind alone, with nothing but a broken ship and their own stubbornness. And they had survived. If they could do it, maybe, just maybe, the rest of the galaxy could too. That night, messages began traveling across the stars. Concordat ships changed course. Weapons were prepared. And on 1,000 worlds, people began to practice something they had almost forgotten. How to hope. How to resist. How to be more than just afraid. The hollow mind felt them. Far away in the darkness of the forbidden sector, it stirred. It had been waiting for so long, growing hungry, preparing to feast on a galaxy full of despair. Instead, it felt something new, something strange, a tiny spark of defiance that should not exist. For the first time in billions of years, the hollow mind felt something that might have been surprise. And deep in its ancient, empty consciousness, it began to wonder if it had made a terrible mistake. The first human fleet arrived 60 days after Earth received the message. Watch from the observation deck of the Concordat's largest station as the ships appeared one by one. They came through the jump points in perfect formation, hundreds of vessels of all sizes. Some were sleek military ships with weapons bristling from every surface. Others were converted cargo haulers and mining vessels, their hulls thick with armor. A few were clearly passenger ships, their windows glowing with warm light. But what caught attention was not the ships themselves. It was the message painted on every single hull, in that strange human language she was beginning to recognize. "We are still here." Captain stood beside her, watching her people arrive. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. "I never thought I would see this," she whispered. "When we launched from Earth, we were alone, a tiny ship in an infinite universe. And now—" She could not finish the sentence. Understood. No words were needed. The human admiral arrived the next day. Her name was Maria Santos, and she was the granddaughter of someone who had trained with the original Endurance crew. She was young by human standards, barely 40 years old, but she carried herself like someone who had already fought 100 battles. "We brought 12,000 ships," she told the council, 3 million soldiers, and 50 million volunteers. The general frowned. Volunteers for what? For whatever needs to be done. Doctors, engineers, teachers, farmers. We do not know exactly what this war will look like, so we brought people who can adapt to anything. She spread her hands on the council table, leaning forward. We also brought something else, something the Endurance crew developed over 200 years. We call it the protocol. She pressed a button, and holographic text appeared in the air. This is a training program. It teaches people how to resist the hollow mind, how to recognize its whispers and reject them, how to hold on to themselves when the darkness tries to take them. The delegate studied the text with interest. You believe this can be taught to other species. Our minds are very different from yours. We believe the principle is universal. The hollow mind attacks despair. It finds the weak points in consciousness, the places where doubt and fear live, and it pushes until the mind breaks. The protocol teaches people to build walls around those weak points, not with technology but with purpose, with meaning, with connections to other people. She looked around the chamber. Your species have lived in peace for thousands of years. That is a wonderful thing, but it has made you forget what our ancestors never forgot. That existence is precious because it is fragile. That consciousness is a gift because it can be lost. The hollow mind counts on you forgetting that. It counts on comfort making you weak. Her eyes were hard as stone. We are here to remind you. The war began 3 months later. The hollow mind did not send armies or ships. It did not need to. Its weapons were whispers and nightmares spreading through space like a plague. Wherever it touched, people began to change. They grew quiet, distant, lost in thoughts that were not their own. And then, one by one, they surrendered to the void. But now there was resistance. Human ships patrolled the borders of infected space, their crews trained in the protocol. When a colony showed signs of the hollow mind's influence, teams of human counselors arrived to help. They taught the same lessons that the Endurance crew had learned in the darkness: how to find reasons to live, how to build connections that the hollow mind could not break, how to look into the abyss and say no. It was not a war of weapons, it was a war of wills. Joined a human ship called the Defiance, serving as a liaison between the Concordat and the human fleet. She watched the human crew work together, saw how they supported each other through the long, dark patrols. They sang songs and told jokes and argued about stupid things and celebrated small victories. They acted as if the fate of the galaxy was not hanging over their heads. "How do you do it?" she asked the ship's captain one night. "How do you stay so calm when we are facing something that has destroyed civilizations?" The captain, a man named, shrugged. "We don't think about it that way. We think about today, this moment, this ship, these people. If we spend all our time worrying about the big picture, we will go crazy. So we focus on what we can control." He poured 2 cups of a hot, bitter drink that humans called coffee. "Besides," he said, "we have been doing this for a long time. Facing things that want to destroy us, plagues, wars, disasters, our own stupidity. Every generation of humans has faced something that looked like the end of the world, and every generation has found a way through." He handed her a cup. "The hollow mind is big and scary, but it is just another thing trying to end us, and we have a lot of practice not ending." The war lasted for 30 years. Worlds fell and were retaken. Species that had almost surrendered found new strength with human help. They who had once wanted to destroy the Endurance became some of humanity's strongest allies. They discovered that their warrior culture, their refusal to accept defeat, made them surprisingly resistant to the hollow mind's whispers. They contributed their ancient knowledge, helping to understand the precursor technology that had built the prison. Together with human engineers, they developed new ways to contain and push back the hollow mind's influence. Even the archivists changed. They had spent millions of years simply watching and remembering. Now they chose to act. They shared secrets that had been hidden since the dawn of time, knowledge that helped turn the tide of the war. But it was the humans who led the final assault. Captain was old by then, her hair completely white, her body worn by time. But her mind was as sharp as ever, and her spirit had not dimmed. She stood on the bridge of a massive fleet carrier, looking at the forbidden sector one last time. "We ran through this place once," she said to who had stayed by her side through all the long years. "Scared and desperate, just trying to survive. Now we are going back, and this time we are not running." The fleet entered Sector 77 Omega together, 10,000 ships from 100 species, carrying the hope of a galaxy. The hollow mind tried to stop them. It sent waves of despair and visions of horror. It whispered that their struggle was meaningless, that the universe would forget them, that consciousness itself was a cruel joke. And the fleet kept going. At the heart of the sector, they found what remained of the precursor prison. It was failing, just as the archivists had said. The hollow mind was beginning to break free, its influence spreading like cracks in glass. But the humans had not come to repair the prison. They had come to build a new one. Using the knowledge they had gathered, the technology they had developed, and the combined will of every species in the galaxy, they created something that had never existed before. A barrier made not of energy or matter, but of meaning. A wall built from every story ever told, every song ever sung, every moment of joy and love and hope that conscious beings had ever experienced. The hollow mind threw itself against the barrier. It howled and raged and promised destruction, but the barrier held. Because it was not built by the precursors, who had been wise but alone. It was built by a galaxy full of minds that had chosen to fight, that had chosen to believe that existence was worth defending, that had chosen to say no. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. The barrier still held. On 1,000 worlds, monuments stood to honor the heroes of the war. The Endurance was preserved in a special museum, its battered hull a symbol of what determination could achieve. And humanity spread across the stars, not as conquerors, but as friends and allies and teachers. They never forgot what they had learned in the darkness. That the universe is cold and vast, and does not care if anyone lives or dies. And that conscious beings can care enough for the whole universe. One day, far in the future, a young asked a human elder why they had fought so hard, why they had risked everything for a galaxy that had not even known they existed. The old human smiled, showing the teeth that no longer frightened anyone. "Because that is what humans do," she said. "We find people who need help, we find things that need fighting, and we never ever give up." She looked up at the stars, at the endless darkness that had once seemed so frightening. "The universe tried to break us, it failed." She laughed and the sound echoed through the night. "We are still here,